This is our special interview here on Morning Wave in Busan. You know, in recent years, social media and media in general really has become an important source of data for researchers. In particular, it allows them to observe everyday social interactions and to get insight into everything related with gender inequality or equality. Let's find out more about how media affects gender equality with Dr. Rosanna Guadagno, who is a social psychologist and director of the Information Warfare Working Group at Stanford University. Hi, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, it's my pleasure. Thank you for the invitation.
Yes. So to jump right in, you know this film Aladdin, Disney's film Aladdin, it's very popular, has been popular, especially here in Korea. It's been a huge hit. The film, of course, is kind of this live-action remake of the 92 animated film. And the most noticeable change was with Jasmine. Where Jasmine in the former animated film was kind of more of a passive character, and this time around, much more of a kind of a proactive character. So that's one case that I guess gender, equality, we've seen a change. Are there any other visible cases that you can share, or maybe you can share your opinion on this?
Yes, certainly. One of the things I've been really enjoying about the more recent set of Disney films is that they've really broken up the stereotype of the princess as helpless and submissive and waiting for her prince to come and rescue her.
Right.
And so in many of the live-action remakes, we've seen like Belle. You know, Belle from the animated version in the 90s was a pretty progressive princess, but Belle portrayed by Emma Watson was even more so. She had agency, she had life goals, she was willing to speak her mind, and it really turned a lot of stereotypes about girls on its head. We've seen that as well with Frozen. You know, I love the fact that Frozen was a love story about sisterhood, not about the prince saving the day. Similarly, Moana was about a princess on a quest and aided by a god. Tangled as well was the Rapunzel story, again, turned on its head because Rapunzel was basically the mover and the driver and the charming woman who was able to solve things for her prince.
Sure.
And so we've seen this over and over and over, and it's a nice pushback to the way that princesses were once depicted in Disney films.
Yes. Well, even more so, there was an American actress who made headlines here in Korea where she appeared on a talk show and said that she doesn't show certain films or, you know, animated movies to her young daughter because of how there has been, at least in the past, these types of kind of gender stereotypes. So do you think that this is still the norm overall?
I think it's changing. One of the things I like about Hollywood in general is oftentimes the version of human nature we see in films presents this image of what we could be. And gender roles are shifting in our society, in our culture, and it's certainly reflected by princesses. So I totally respect, I believe the actress is Keira Knightley.
Yes.
So I totally respect her opinion. I mean, when you think about like The Little Mermaid, you know, it's kind of a tragic story because this is a story of a princess who's willing to give up everything for the love of a man. And while it's nice to be loved and it's nice to have a partner in life, there are other things that make women who we are besides who we love. And Ariel was willing to give away her crown and her voice because she wanted this prince. And so I totally respect Keira Knightley's decision in that respect. But I also think that the more contemporary Disney princesses really aren't willing to sacrifice everything for the prince, for the man. And so I like that change.
I see. Well, it seems that there are some positive changes that seem to be appearing in the advertising industry as well, which is, of course, a huge industry. Recently, the Advertising Standards Authority, the ASA in the UK, announced that apparently they're going to be banning ads that could create gender stereotypes in broadcasting and in online and social media. So can you speak on that? What are some types of ads that can trigger gender stereotypes?
Certainly. So in general, unfortunately, most ads trigger gender stereotypes more so than not these days. Although it's shifting, but typically we have these societal expectations that women ought to be passive and submissive and engage in certain activities. Like girls are seen as supposed to be enjoying dolls more than video games, whereas boys are supposed to play with trucks and play video games more so than dolls. And so when kids get exposed to those types of ads that show this very gendered type of play,
yes,
it activates those stereotypes. On the adult side,
yes,
there are a lot of ads that say if you look at ads for certain household products, so dishwasher detergent or washing machine laundry detergent, it's often the mom that's doing the dishes or the laundry. Whereas when you see men featured in ads, it's men who are rugged and are doing very manly, active, independent activities. And there's no reason why a man can't do laundry, and there's no reason why a woman can't engage in rugged outdoor activities, but yet that's often not what's portrayed in advertising. So when it shows men and women or boys and girls engaging in these very narrow gendered activities, they can activate gender stereotypes and create this impression that men and women ought to behave a certain way, when in fact the research shows that there are a few differences in between men and women based on gender, based on our biology, but they're not that great. There's nothing in our biology that says that pink is a girl's color and blue is a boy's color. In fact, in the 1900s and previously, pink was associated with men, not women. So these things shift.
Well, perhaps due to the current, atmosphere of viewing gender equality as an important value, the trend-sensitive ad community seems to be responding to this. And so there's a term that's being used called femvertising. Can you explain what that is and maybe give us some examples?
Yes, absolutely. So femvertising is a term that describes advertisements that show women and girls engaging in activities that kind of are counter to feminine gender role stereotypes. So basically bust up the idea that women need to be submissive and stay at home and give it all for love. And along those lines, there's also some physical appearance expectations as well. So women are supposed to be thin and they're supposed to be beautiful. And we see this a lot in ads. And so femvertising ads take those ideas and bust them up. So one particular set of ads I quite like is Dove Beauty. So Dove makes soap and body wash and other products that they market to women. But they market to women by basically portraying the idea that beauty comes in all shapes, sizes, and colors. One of my favorites is an ad that talks about behaving like a girl and takes the idea that sometimes we hear these derogatory comments about, you run like a girl or you fight like a girl or you drive like a girl, conveying the idea that like a girl is weak. And so Dove did this really neat ad basically showing how powerful girls can run, how powerful they can be. And so that's one of my favorites. And then I'll give you a much more recent, as of it dropped in the last couple of days, ad. So as you know, it's been big on social media that the U.S. women's national soccer team just won the World Championship. Yes. And so Nike just released this awesome advertisement celebrating their win, but also celebrating with their win the image that women and girls can do anything. We can be president. We can have whatever job we want. We can be the best athlete in the world. You don't have to be a man to do those things. And so I think I'm hoping that Nike ad wins the next femvertising award, because it's a really good one that busts those gender stereotypes.
Yes. Well, here domestically, there's been this a bit of a controversy regarding an ice cream commercial featuring a young girl, but she was kind of made up to look like an adult. And so this whole idea of, I guess, I don't know, is it over-sexualizing young girls to look like, adult women? Do you think this is an overreaction, or do you think these types of ads, not this one per se, but these types of ads are problematic?
I think that these ads are problematic. And just to be completely frank, I'm also a mother of young girls. So not only do I study this, but I have some personal investment here. And I think it's very dangerous to sexualize children, boys or girls. Because showing a little girl dressed like a woman makes her a sex object, and she's a child. Right. And the same is true of boys. Children should be shown playing and enjoying life, and it would be different if an ad showed a girl like playing dress up, and she's clearly wearing shoes that are too big for her, and her mom's big necklace. That's different. But showing a girl dressed as a woman wearing clothing that are tailored to a woman and makeup that would be appropriate for a woman, it turns a child into a sex object, and I don't think that's okay. That's not somewhere our society wants to go. Certainly all we have to do is look at the headlines and see the news about Jeffrey Epstein to know that sexualizing children is not a wise idea.
Indeed. Right. Well, what about social media? I would think that unlike commercials and films and, TV broadcasting, where we do have more oversight, there are some mechanisms in place. Social media might be a little bit more difficult to monitor. So how can we deal with the problems of, gender equality or even gender discrimination in social media?
I think that is a tough one to deal with, both as a parent, both from the perspective of the social media companies, broadly, in part because you can't monitor, but also there's a lot of issues with respect to gender going on social media. So, for instance, I'm actually writing a book on social media right now, and so I've been looking at the literature in terms of gender and social media. And one thing you see is that when you look at who uses which social media platforms, girls and women tend to use the more image-heavy social media platforms. And the research has then linked this emphasis on image to a decrease in self-esteem among women and girls. And part of it is because one of the norms of social media is that people don't talk about all the bad things in their life. They instead only talk about the good things in our life. And so it creates this idea that everyone's life is better than yours, or when it comes to physical appearance, it creates this idea that all of your 500 friends are prettier and thinner than you are, when in fact a fair number of people admit to photoshopping the images they post on social media, or they spend quite a bit of time finding that perfect pose. And so it presents this unrealistic image that girls can't attain to. So that's one big problem with social media. But I also think there's a bit of a flip side. I think that part of the reason why we're seeing some equality along the lines in terms of gender, and gender equality is becoming more of a thing, is that people are talking about gender issues more broadly. So like the Me Too movement was kind of horrifying because everybody learned that pretty much every woman has been sexually harassed at some point in her life. But at the same time, it was also validating. And I think that to the extent that we can openly talk about these gendered issues through social media and the way that it connects us, I think it actually could be a good thing. But at the same time, I try to limit my own social media use, I don't allow my children at all on social media because I don't want them to start getting caught up in the idea that there's this perfect female appearance that they need to live up to, because it's not accurate, it's not true, it's not valid, it's not real life.
Well, for a final question, what do you hope to see in the near future in terms of gender equality when we're talking about media and social media?
Well, I think a couple of things. First off, I'd love to see a little bit more emphasis on facts and genuine behavior on social media. I think that if people were more willing to be themselves on social media, we would have less of these issues.
Yes.
I do like the fact that social media does allow people to connect and talk more openly about some of these issues, like the Me Too example I just gave. So that gives me some hope. And then actually there is a movement among some young people, at least in the United States, to kind of move away from social media, because we now have a generation of adolescents who have had their whole lives chronicled on social media from the time they were born, when their parents first started posting photographs.
Yes.
And some of them are uncomfortable with this, and so they're turning away from social media and turning more to older school face-to-face communication, and I think that gives me hope. I think it is good when we practice moderation in all things, and that includes social media.
Well, thank you so much for your time and your opinions on this very hot topic.
My pleasure.
All right. Once again, this was Dr. Rosanna Guadagno, and we talked about gender equality and inclusivity in our special interview.